In 2018, March 9th, President Kenyatta and ODM leader Raila Odinga put aside their marriages and came together at the steps of Harambee House, the two taking vows and promising to unite for the peace of the nation. Then the big question came of whomever opposes the union should speak. And yes, Uhuru's partner DP Ruto and his allies spoke and they were kicked out of the wedding reception. The marriage then gave birth the BBI that is few days to being introduced Kenyans for approval through a popular referendum vote. This week, however, as the country marks its third anniversary of the handshake that led to a ceasefire between the two rivals, sounds of betrayals have begun drumming. Raila's key allies, Siaya Senator James Orengo and Rarieda Member of Parliament Otiende Omolo, alleging a government official at Harambee House is planning to edge Raila Odinga. Welcome to Tipping Point to this 11th day of March. Uhuru Kenyatta is expected to make a State of the Nation address on COVID-19 as Kenya marks 1 year since recording its first case of the vaccine of the virus in the country. We ask you tonight, should the dusk to dawn curfew be lifted or extended? And on our question of the day, is the Uhuru and Raila handshake over? Is the Uhuru and Raila handshake over? To discuss is the state of the nation and political affairs in the offing. Our guest, Anthony Buluma, the CEO of the Kenya Young Parliamentarian Association, Francis Kibai, a nominated MCA in Baringo County Assembly, and Kimani Ngonjiri, a political analyst. You, of course, are fourth panelists. Send in your feedback, comments, and through our SMS line 11144 or on our social media handles at Switch TV Kenya, a link on Wambogo. And to keep this show as interactive as possible, remember to use the hashtag Tipping Point. My name is Lincoln Wambogo. Our sign language interpreters tonight are Michael Mathia and Teresia Washira. But first, we start the show with this bite from James Orengo that hints signs of a messy and silent divorce.
These civil servants to be compliant and obedient to political institutions. This is just a warning shot because we are going to expose these people. They are trying to derail us. They have already declared in their mind who is going to lead, who is going to rule Kenya next year. We must expose a civil service that is doing politics. Even in BBI, they have led to the closure of the secretariat so that they run the BBI project from government offices which are not given that authority.
Well, James Orengo says that, there is tension and a civil servant could be planning to edge Raila Odinga. So the question of the day is Uhuru and Raila handshake over? SMS 11144 at Switch TV Kenya, link on Wambogo, hashtag Tipping Point. Is the Uhuru and Raila handshake over? But before that, who is James Orengo talking about? Buluma.
First of all, thank you, Lincoln, for having me on the Tipping Point.
Anytime.
The handshake, as you are all aware, was between two individuals who and was born out of a situation where we went through a very difficult election that resulted into, two very highly contested outcomes, whereby you have on one hand Prime Minister Odinga, and the other hand President Uhuru Kenyatta, and both of them took an oath, one as a people's president, the other one as the president of the Republic of Kenya. And as a result of that very tense moment in the country, because again, drums of war were, drumming up in different corners of Kenya, they reached out to each other and shook hands. And the culmination of it is what today we are describing as a handshake. They never defined, the specifics of the, nitty-gritties of that agreement.
Buluma, allow me to cut you short.
Yeah.
Going by what James Orengo just said right there, who is he talking about? This civil servant.
I think
planning to edge Raila Odinga.
In one of the stations, was it yesterday or the day before, he categorically mentioned the name of one Karanja Kibisho, who was the PS for Interior. And
you think it's Karanja Kibisho?
He is on record having said it on a live television interview.
Okay.
So I think that is the person he's referring to.
You see,
Karaoke.
Yeah, I'm surprised that Kenyans would be surprised that this marriage between the president and Raila Odinga would be in turmoil at this point. You see, we are not talking of a matrimonial marriage whereby people are giving vows and saying that they will be living together in joy or in sorrow. This is a political marriage, and as you know, there is no permanent friendship or enmity in politics. It's only vested and strategic interests. So if Raila Odinga and his party does not have the initial interest of Jubilee or President Uhuru Kenyatta aside, then it is expected that that pact will die automatically.
Kariuki, do you agree with Buluma that the said civil servant that Orengo is talking about is actually Karanja Kibisho?
I'm not sure.
You're not sure?
I'm not sure because
Okay.
because I'm not in.
Please note, I am quoting. I am quoting Orengo himself. He's on record saying, I think it's just that I don't want to mention the station. But yesterday in a live interview, he actually categorically singled out the PS for Interior.
Yes. What has Kibisho done?
Okay, thank you, Bwana Lincoln, for inviting us in these discussions.
What has Kibisho done?
Okay, first, we can say that we are reading from the scripts.
Yes.
Actually, I sympathize with the Raila side or Orengo side or Orengo.
Why is that?
Because the handshake, the start of the formation of the handshake was now Raila thinking that I'm tricking the Uhuru.
You're saying that this whole arrangement was not genuine?
It was not genuine. So now, the person whom Orengo is referring is Karanja Kibicho.
What has Karanja Kibisho done?
Actually, you've seen, if my friend Buluma actually has confirmed
Yes.
that Orengo himself has said in on record
Yes.
that is Karanja Kibicho. Karanja Kibicho is now, it's like enjoying now the monopoly of the state. Is now the deep state that we've been referring to, misusing the police officers and the security systems of this country. That is the one that is state managing violence. There's the political violence in this country, and we can actually mention so many violences when Kenyans are peaceful on their meetings or when they're being talked by their leaders. But when a person who is against Kipicho or even is not reading from the same script with Kipicho, he sends the police to disrupt that meeting.
But I think it's also important now that it appears like I'm the source of that, and I'm also quoting a television interview. But this is my understanding.
Do you want to clarify anything?
No, this is my understanding of why names were mentioned and what have you.
Yes.
One, Senator Orengo went to one of the rallies and mentioned that they feel frustrated and they feel like somebody within the structures of government is undermining Prime Minister Odinga. And the basis that were given for that undermining was that this individual wants to sort of micromanage the BBI secretariat that was launched to facilitate the whole process of, the process towards the referendum. And questions that were emerging included issues to do with the budget. And you know that probably some of these quarters are relying on the security budget to facilitate because and also Karanja Kibicho sits at the apex of the administrative leadership when it comes to managing and supervising ministries. So I think it's on those bases that fingers were pointed and said that if this individual is not endorsing what is in the spirit and the letter of the BBI secretariat, then it means in a nutshell you're actually undermining Raila, and by extension you're undermining the handshake. So those were the basis of my understanding of the debate.
Yes, let me help my friend here, Bluma. You see, when you want to understand a political phenomena, look at who is the beneficiary, even if you don't know who has sponsored that.
Yes.
So who benefits when...
Now, that brings me to another question, Karaoke, for you, now that you've said that.
Yes.
Is the said civil servant on rogue business, or is he acting under influence?
I think this is part of what is called part of bureaucratic cartel ecosystem within any ruling regime. You know, you have people who always pull strings and scheming everywhere. Because they are the people who have been given the responsibility of taking care of in-house issues and making sure that they hold brief for the government of the day. So if you understand the state in its complexity, then you'll appreciate that what is happening normally happens within a state setting. However, sometimes it could be malicious that some of these individuals, often quoted as deep state, and when you look at the description of the word deep state, it means these are long-serving civil servants who will always be behind the scenes. And in this case, you've already seen that the PS has taken control of the BBI report in Mount Kenya. So it doesn't surprise me that anybody would guess that it is PS Kibicho.
What do you mean, Karaoke?
Yes.
What do you mean?
Okay, you've seen it.
It's apparent.
Let me
It's
also,
apparent.
let me
and
also
you can be able
support.
to see through the right.
Let
is
me
not apparent to me.
Lincoln, let me support on what my brother said, that the state PS
Yes.
has taken control of Mount Kenya. You saw when Raila and his team wanted to enter Mount Kenya through Kidurai, all the Mount Kenya members of parliament, those who are on Kieleweka side and those who've been pretending to be in support of Raila Odinga, that all of them switched their phones. They all switched their phones and went, the people who welcome Baba in Kidurai are actually the people from the Raila side. So we've seen, they have seen that they have used Raila enough. So there is just a tip that they are giving some doses to Raila. So this is a trick that is not needed in this country. We should deal now on the issues that are affecting Kenyans than dealing with tricks that will not take us anywhere and will not help our people. We could be going around the country assisting the hustlers, assisting those who have been affected by the COVID and the anger that is in this country, than facing now on the intrigues of political gimmicks and conmanship.
What will Kibisho gain at the end of all this?
I think this is part of gatekeeping in a government structure.
Gatekeeping?
And yes, whichever regime that will come into power, every time you always have those people. They will be quoted as people who are in charge and taking control of this stuff. Sometimes they are accused of, you've seen what has been happening in the neighboring country here, Uganda, and you would see people within the military, people in the Republic of Tanzania, who are also accused of some of these political machinations that happens within government, and sometimes are used to do dirty work. So this is not surprising to me that at this point we could be talking of this. However, I'm in support of what James Orengo said, and especially because as a strategic imperative for the people who are supporting BBI and those that are selling BBI, some of these individuals cannot be able to exercise public relations to an extent of being able to sell this document to wananchi. They come with that bravado and that chest thumping to the people, telling them that you must buy this idea. If you are not with us, you are either against us. This issue of saying that you are ideologically pure, and by the way, I should tell you, in history, political issues are often sold through persuasion, and sometimes when there is use of force, it must be diplomatic force, not the issue of force of putting a gun on somebody's head to do or achieve something. You see, whatever happened to MCS, and my friend here from Baringo is present.
Before we even come to that, Karaoke, let me just cut you short. On this, still on this Karanja Kibisho issue, let us look at all scenarios. President Kenyatta will be out of office in less than 500 days, right? Kibisho is fighting Raila Odinga. Raila Odinga and President Kenyatta are sharing something. William Ruto, he has also been fighting William Ruto, right? True or false?
As alleged.
Yes.
As alleged. As alleged.
It's not alleged.
So what? My question is, what does Karanja Kibisho have to gain, or is it that President Kenyatta does not want to let go of power?
I think, Lincoln,
What does he have to gain?
and for us to actually be very objective
Please.
in terms of this debate, it would be unfair for us to just narrow down to an individual who, in this case, is a political appointee, meaning he serves at the pleasure of the appointing authority, who's the president of Kenya. And I think the real debate in the Kibisho issue must not stop at Kibisho, the guy. Because please remember,
where does it
it stops at the person who has appointed him into office.
So is my friend now saying that the president is the one who is
I would read that honestly, because you cannot, usurp the powers that are donated to you by the president of Kenya. Kibisho is a principal secretary. Principal secretaries are appointees of the president.
Yes.
He is not your ordinary civil servant who's risen through, the ranks of civil service to be a director or something of that sort. So even when we debate, I think the right discussion, even from Orengo's perspective, should have been, is the president undermining the handshake? If in his wisdom, he feels like...
Now that you've got that agenda, do you think that is the case, Buluma?
I'm yet to actually read a very clear sign of him undermining because of various reasons. One, I think it will not work in the president's best interest to undermine the handshake at this point. He is fighting to create a legacy that probably might actually cover up for all the shortcomings within the Jubilee administration. And one such strong legacy would be leaving behind a united country, that is devoid of the kind of division that we've witnessed in the previous elections. And if his words are anything to go by, I strongly believe that it's not a strategic place for the president to in any way undermine the handshake. If anything, I would urge a scenario where the president extends the handshake further to bring in the third force in the political machinations. It is obvious. William Samoei Ruto.
No. I will disagree with Buluma.
On what grounds?
On the grounds that William Ruto is a third force to now unite this country. In fact, the person who started the unity of this country is William Ruto. When they shake hands with Uhuru Kenyatta in Nakuru and pledge, you understand how the country was that time. But when they shook hands with Uhuru Kenyatta, then the country became peaceful. Then there is one thing that there is a precedence that this country needs to look at.
What's that?
That now, when you are defeated in an election, you become so rowdy, you sponsor violence in the country. Then you are told that now, because you need peace, you need to handshake, then you sideline others. Something that needs to be done in this country is that when you lose an election, you need to agree. And now the country moves on. Because the precedents that Raila Odinga did it, and Uhuru, of course we agree that we need peace in this country. That we don't need peace that is based with trickery. That now we need to meet as two and now cheat another person. William Ruto has supporters all over the country. All over the country. So it's not timely to pretend as if you reject him or throw words of tantrums to him. And you see how he's making this country and uplifting the hustlers in this nation.
Let me ask you, Mheshimiwa. Buluma is of the opinion that it's not Kibisho. Kibisho is acting under influence. Do you agree? What does Kibisho have to gain or lose in all this?
Of course,
with less than 500 days in office.
Of course, what I agree with Buluma is that we respect the president of this republic.
Yes.
Maybe these guys are they are just acting on their own. I don't think the president of this republic can undermine the handshake, which him himself brought in.
Well, I believe first of all,
yes,
those that are being accused of doing those political machinations are acting in their own capacity.
Yes.
As we have seen from different regimes, people who used to do some of these things, but at the end of the day, they did not represent the will of the president of that government. The president, I don't think the president would, for example, sanction a person like Kibicho or whoever other people to go and undermine his deputy directly. I don't think the president would do that. Another point to note, and this is very clear, that the only friend that President Uhuru Kenyatta has in that whole cabal of a cabal and another clique of friendship here and there, it's William Ruto only. Because you can see how the Kenyatta-Ruto marriage has been able to survive, marriage in quotes, because we say this is not the cake cutting marriage that we normally have. But the only person who trusts and who can be able to stand with the president either during adversity or during good times is William Ruto. How long has this handshake lasted? And yet we can still see people giving demands that if you don't do this, we will withdraw. If you don't do this, we will withdraw.
Is that how marriage really works?
It's these guys in ODM that are coming into this handshake now for the second phase of the BBI selling and whatever, with very high expectations that after this, the president is going to endorse Raila Odinga, or he should not, he should be ideologically pure. It is either he's with Raila Odinga and not be seen with anybody else. It is either the president should be working with Raila and isolate William Ruto. So the problem with the ODM party and the Raila Odinga team is that self-entitlement, that we must not engage anybody else and the president must remain true to this. You see, it is not the same as it happened in March 8th on the handshake of Raila and the way William Ruto took it. It was different. William Ruto was welcoming and he agreed with the president that this country must get peace. But then these other guys now have started being fixed by the same people that they are trying to give ultimatums. Now they are crying out the loudest. Yet they are the ones who have also been participating in some of these gimmicks. Isolate William Ruto so that we can work together. So this one is already dead. This handshake is already dead.
Look, do you agree? Is the handshake
It
already
died long
dead?
time
But
ago,
maybe
for
we
sure.
can ask the viewers, is the Uhuru and Raila handshake over? Send in your feedback to our SMS line 111 at Switch TV Kenya. A link on Obogo. Use the hashtag tipping point below. But do you think the
I think
handshake is
for
over?
purposes of clarity, and I must say that we are speaking the same language. I'm in agreement,
Yes.
and even using the context of Ruto as the third force was to imply,
Yes.
politically speaking, because we don't live in a vacuum, we actually see what is happening. In terms of crowds, the only other person who's pulling significant crowds in this country today is William Ruto. My problem with the handshake, and that's why I said what needs to be done is actually an extension of the handshake to include William Ruto. Because if genuinely we are talking about a united country moving towards the election and beyond the forthcoming elections, we must actually put practice to what you're saying. And putting practice means
Can I ask him a
put
question?
every key player
Just a moment,
on the table. All right?
Yes.
Put every key player on the table. Because the attitude that has been shaped around the country is an attitude to suggest that our elections are so divisive that we lose an entire 2 years trying to heal the wounds of an election every cycle of an election. And that's why we are saying, if genuinely that's what the government feels, and in this case the government of President Uhuru, that actually the country loses post-election because of the election tensions that we witness after every election, then he must actually go the extra mile and say, who is the other player who is not on this table? But what we are witnessing every day, and that's why sometimes you find all these challenges. They've isolated one individual in the name of William Ruto, who's a deputy deputy president, but he operates as if he's also a spectator from outside a government that he helped form. On the other hand, you have here somebody like Raila today claiming that actually civil servants are undermining him. You see what I'm talking about? But my take is that political leadership within the government of the day rests entirely in the shoulders of the president. Not in a principal secretary, not in a CS who's an appointee of the president. And that's what I'm saying. In the event, even if somebody walks into your house and they want to meddle with the affairs of your house, then your son decides, I'm kicking you out of this house. The buck will stop at the father, because the father is the one who determines who comes to this house, who goes out.
The buck stops with the father. The buck stops the president of this country. The show you're watching is Tipping Point. We take a short commercial break. The conversation continues shortly. Welcome back. The show you're watching is Tipping Point right here on Switch TV. The question we're asking you tonight is the Uhuru and Raila handshake over? Is the Uhuru and Raila Odinga handshake over? Send in your feedback to our SMS line 111 at Switch TV Kenya and at Lincoln Wambogo. With me are my guests, my panelists, gentlemen. Thank you. Now, the handshake. Buluma, you think it's over? Yes or no?
It's on the hospital.
Karaoke, you think it's over? Yes or no?
Yes, I do think it's
It's over.
And especially because, you see, the president has those guys that are waiting for his endorsement
It's
lining
over.
up there.
It's over.
So who does he choose? So even the
Why do
Raila
you
will
think
walk
it's
away.
over?
Okay, now,
Yes or no?
I'm not in the position of saying that it's over or not, because we are not
From your
partners.
observation.
We are not partners of the handshake.
Uh-huh.
And of course, it was formed on a trickery, you know.
You think so?
Yeah, I think so, because everybody was saying that I'm cheating this one, I'm cheating this one. So, and you understand, when William Ruto, the deputy president, said that
Yes.
in this referendum, let's not have a contested referendum. Let's have a document that is acceptable to all Kenyans. Others are saying that let's go to a referendum. No, let's go to this. But it is possible to have a non-contested referendum. So if that was the intention of the handshake, to have a contested referendum, that means the country is already divided.
So you're not sure whether the handshake is okay or not?
It's already dead.
It's dead?
It was dead long time ago.
Buluma, you think it's in hospital? It's over. It died a long time ago. Could Uhuru's endorsement have caused anything to do with this handshake being over or the handshake being in hospital? Uhuru's endorsement. Does it matter that much?
He's endorsed who?
His endorsement. He hasn't endorsed anyone, but people expect him to endorse someone.
I think the last time I checked, he had only endorsed William Ruto. So I'm waiting to hear this
You
endorsement.
you see,
Yes.
let me help my friend here, Bloomer. You see, each and every person in that handshake
Yes.
is, or rather, the former NASA coalition members are waiting for an endorsement from President Uhuru, and including even Gideon Moi.
Yes.
So it is obvious.
Is that where the rubber hits the road?
It's obvious that he's not going to endorse any of them. And if he's going to endorse any of them, then it's not Raila. So I think that is why Raila is packing and leaving the house as early as now.
Gentlemen,
That doesn't come
You
to
saw
disappointment.
even you saw when the former president
Yes.
Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi died, and then the leaders went there. So you saw the president was so sympathetic to Gideon Moi and the family, and said that now Gideon should be the person leading the pack. And now when we saw again the president, when Musalia lost the mother, we saw the president was so sympathetic and said that now what we need to do is that the two tribes that had led this country should now pack and leave to another tribe.
Where is this going?
So,
Where is this going?
so now,
Yeah.
other quarters were celebrating, and in some way,
Yes.
after that we have seen that there is a force that now we've seen that the system is just a targeting, and we call it a Sarala coalition, because Kenyans know that they are just rotating within the State House, taking tea, coming outside, waiting to be endorsed. When Raila saw these ones are now you saw in the by-elections that passed recently. So we see the state machinery, the police, and every state resources that was used in Matungu, in Kabuchai, in Nakuru. The state machinery were actually against anybody ODM and anybody the UDA side, a party that came recently. We see how the machines of the government were used. So now I think Raila is a sharp guy, and so that this one, if he goes that direction, he has known that he has been tricked. So now he's considering himself, no, I must walk my way.
Gentlemen, if this handshake was genuinely to unite Kenyans, has it already united Kenyans?
Not quite. I think it got diluted by the many political issues that keep emerging. And I think you rightly put it when you were starting, when you said politics is a space of interest. And please never forget that statement, because even the handshake is born out of interest. And even when people are doing an analysis of the political events that are shaping our country, the easiest way to, locate where the direction of the handshake is taking is by defining the interest. One very strong attribute that I give it to Uhuru, President Uhuru, is his ability to keep everyone guessing. Is a very strong feature in terms of balancing power, because, like he correctly put, everyone believes somehow. If you sit with the camp here, Kalonzo, they will tell you that in the deepest heart of Uhuru, he finds Kalonzo to be a suitable presidential candidate and is likely to endorse him as a good compromise. If you come to camp of Mudavadi, where I belong, you will hear Luya saying the clearest indication of an endorsement for a presidential candidate was done in Vihiga during Mudavadi's mother's burial.
Yes.
If you go to Raila's camp, Oburu is saying the last time they felt like they had won the election, but it appeared like they didn't have the system on their side. But now that they have the system on their side, it's a sure bet. So that means what? He's awaiting an endorsement.
So the only
if you come back to Rift Valley,
Yes.
under UDA, and you have William Samoei Ruto, he will tell you, yes, nobody owes me a debt. But remember, I never forced anyone to also say that they will endorse me come 2022. So who's now the master here? Everything revolves around one person, Uhuru Kenyatta.
Do you think he's going
But
to
I
endorse
agree.
anyone?
Lincoln,
just a moment.
let me
Just a
just
moment.
interject for a moment.
Let's go to karaoke.
Raila
Let's go
Odinga
to
will
karaoke.
have himself to blame. Why? Because I always say that he slept through the most important phase of this process.
Which is what?
While William Ruto was busy creating what I call a grassroots organizational infrastructure across the country, whereby he was reaching out to the last voter in the last village, which is actually the ultimate formula of winning an election. Raila Odinga was busy calculating his mathematics in Nairobi, doing some boardroom meetings here and there, and that was the most important phase when William Ruto was actually busy engaging Kenyans directly. So I think it was a strategic blunder for Raila Odinga to have over-relied on the handshake, for it to deliver him what some of us are talking about, endorsement, or even what people would call a through pass, to be able to grant him an opportunity, perhaps in the coming days, not to use his own resources, but to use the BBI rallies and popularization campaigns to also set his 2022 game. When it is apparent that now the game is turning against him, I think those who advise Raila, or he must have seen this. And I think that is why the meeting that was supposed to happen in Kibra on Sunday was up to the last minute going to happen. They were just going to now start drawing stones and trying to throw the spanner into the works so that this thing can go off completely, and then they can go back and reorganize themselves. But the question is, will they be able to recapture? Does Raila Odinga know where Kiminjiro Road is in, somewhere in central Kenya? Does he know a place in Turkana where William Ruto has been? Has he been to Ukambani like William? Where will he get the resources, the infrastructure to be able to build a grassroots organization infrastructure, a priest who can be able to deliver a sermon and ask people to go and vote, a boda guy who can be able to instruct his colleagues to ferry people to go and vote? You see, this is the kind of politics that defines the Kenyan political ecosystem. Nothing else.
Are you saying the handshake between Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga was not genuine, and that Raila Odinga was in it for 2022?
I blame Raila Odinga, because even if he was in it for 2022, because that was his most important goal at that moment. The president was genuine because he's going home. He never had so many interests. He only had the interest of seizing this fire that we've been seeing on Mondays and whatever, tear gas Mondays. But then Raila Odinga did a very, very, very huge blunder that will cost him forever and ever. And I fault him for this, having an experience of all those years and not being able to see through the lines, that
What
this
lines?
thing will end up taking me into the ditch. So that is where he is now, because apparently we hear that there could be some schemes here and there to avoid a referendum. You see? So if that is true, so where will Raila end up in his game of wanting to popularize BBI?
I think building on what you're saying, I think let's be clear on one thing here. Number one, have we ever been in a similar situation in history? I will say yes. When Moi was just about to exit office, there is no president who kept everybody guessing like President Moi. Saitoti knew he was his favorite candidate. You can name, I don't know, all the political players as at that point who knew that Moi is exiting the political scene had positioned themselves knowing that Moi will ultimately endorse them. Up until towards the end,
He endorsed Uhuru Kenyatta.
Moi from nowhere picked a young man who was just doing his own business and told him, come first, become an MP. And people are wondering, what is he trying to do? The next thing, he makes him a minister. The next
Become
thing,
chairperson
of Kano. And the next thing, and so what I'm trying to drive at is that in this political space that we operate in, it's never a sure bet.
So
not for Raila, not for anybody else, because it's a space of interest. And the interest of the day will dictate who Uhuru wants to endorse. Because you see, at the end of the day, even as he exits, he also has his own interest in Mount Kenya. That's why sometimes for DP, even as he tries to maneuver, Uhuru is looking at, are you invading my territory in a manner that tomorrow you can actually dictate the terms? So he begins to try and safeguard his space.
Let
if
me
you go
agree.
to all other places,
Let me agree with Buluma on one thing.
Let me cut the both of you short. Buluma
because we want to close that chapter.
Buluma says that the handshake has not really united Kenyans. Karaoke, has the handshake really united Kenyans?
It has seized the violence, but not united Kenyans.
But not united Kenyans.
Yes.
Let me come to you. Has the handshake really united Kenyans? Let's start with that.
Okay, now, before I start with that, I want to agree with Buluma on one thing. That Musalia Mudavadi is waiting for an endorsement.
Yes.
Kalonzo Musyoka is waiting for an endorsement. Gideon Moi is waiting for an endorsement. So the only person that has been endorsed by Kenyans is William Ruto. Because what actually is done is that he left long time ago and engaged with the people. He actually engaged with the people in the grassroots. He empowered the youth. He empowered women. He actually empowered the hustlers. So now, these are the guys who are just rotating within these the air-conditioned rooms in Nairobi. When people are suffering in the ground. So now, when the rain started beating the handshake, you know, when this corona thing came in, they isolated William Ruto. They say that this one, no. They started the tendering processes of KEMSA and corruptions. So you've seen actually the action that they did. They have not taken anything. The president say that let's wait for 21 days. It's not even 21 days that has elapsed. It's actually almost a year.
Kavai, tell me, has a handshake really united Kenyans?
No. That's not united.
Now,
Kenyans.
but also, Lincoln, I don't think that should be a straight yes or no, because you see, unity is a process. It's not an event. So if we expected that just after shaking hands, the entire population of Kenya is united, then we missed the point. I would laud some steps that are associated with the handshake that are likely to actually unite this country. One such step is the whole question of balancing power. Because you see, at the end of the day, political interest revolves around power. So if we can be able to get it right as a country and say that everybody feels like they have a share in the management of our resources, that is a step towards uniting the country. And that is why I consistently try to make this prediction. As naive, as crazy as it looks, I anticipate a scenario, if this BBI was to deliver anything in terms of those political positions and whatnot, I foresee a scenario of Raila and Ruto in the same camp.
You do?
Preaching the same gospel to the same population that today is differing. And the reason why I say
that... the worst that can happen if this handshake was in the open and
let me tell you, and that is why consistently it is repeated. Politics is the art of the impossible. That which is wildest in your imagination. Do you know, just imagine a scenario, for Uhuru, whose term is almost ending, and very many people have their own reservations. Others commend his administration. Others have very strong reservations about the shortcomings. So imagine a scenario towards the lapse of his term. He walks down the steps of Harambee, holding Ruto on one hand and Raila on the next hand,
Yes.
and presents them as the next
Is
leadership
that
of
the
Kenya.
worst that can happen? Is that the worst that can happen, Karaoke?
It is actually dangerous for the president and those that support him. If at all an nilotic signal, like he said, was to be figured in this one, whereby we have William Ruto and Raila Odinga working together, and now the supporters of both feeling that for all this time there has been this short changing in one way or the other. You see that that uncomfortable environment that has been there. From now, we have seen Raila Odinga supporters and William Ruto supporters. So just imagine the unity of both and what it would do to the supporters of President Uhuru. It would be isolated. But then, like I said, and I cautioned this.
How will he be isolated?
I said, the only true friend whom I believe is loyal, and whether this goes wherever it goes, Raila joins Ruto or whichever way, is William Ruto. I don't think William Ruto could do anything that could be geared towards isolating the president. I think even in the worst scenario, whereby he feels that it's unfair that this administration is mistreating me, here is Raila who wants me to work together with him, I think William Ruto is different. He's not going to do that. So
you think William Ruto and Raila Odinga are not going to
Why
work
do you think
together?
Mudavadi is not?
What we are
you
saying,
see,
eh?
What you are saying,
let me tell you,
No.
in this
What we are
race,
saying,
in this race, we cannot place Mudavadi anywhere within the matrix of
Why?
2022
If
Why?
the
as a front
Luhya
runner.
nation decided to vote as
No,
a bloc,
as a front
are you
runner.
able to undermine
You
that?
see,
Why
let
would
me
you
let,
disqualify
let me tell you,
David now?
let me
How would
tell
you
you
undermine that?
what would
I
happen.
think-
What is likely to happen?
Explain
First of
Karaoke.
all, what is likely to happen? These two guys,
Yes.
as William Ruto and Raila Odinga, will have strategic interest in Luhya land, which actually will overshadow Musalia Mudavadi, because I don't think he can be able to deliver 100% of the votes of Western Kenya into his basket. The same to Kalonzo Musyoka. These two guys, I think in this political matrix, they are the only guys who seems inconsequential in this game.
Thank you, Karaoke. Goodbye.
I disagree
Ruto and
entirely.
Raila Odinga working together.
Okay, now what we've said, it's not a matter of working together. It is a matter of convincing Kenyans. If Raila Odinga convinces Kenyans that he is the right person and if he elected the president, so the other person concedes the defeat. But William Ruto has stepped in every, let's not put a question of who will endorse who. Kenyans will endorse the president of this republic. Kenyans. Let's leave aside the tribal linings. Kenyans now are beyond that. Kenyans now are clever. They know who will assist them. William Ruto has stepped every corner of this republic. Tell me somebody like Mudavadi, where even even within Western, even within
Maragua.
Leave alone even within Western Kenya, even within Western Kenya, I think the steps that William Ruto has taken, even he has gone to Western Kenya more than Mudavadi himself. Look at Kalonzo Musyoka, even the Kamba himself, the Kamba nation, as we said, he has not even stepped there separately. William Ruto has engaged with hustlers in entire country. So now it's not a matter of who will endorse who. No, we should not take that.
But who can work with who? Can Ruto work with Raila?
No, he can work with everybody, so long as he's the president of this republic.
And Raila is a deputy.
No.
Is it William Ruto has
Not unless he come
many
and-
times more.
So now
I don't think that's
it's not-
correct,
it's
because
not a
Mudavadi lives
matrix.
in Western.
Buluma, tell me something.
Mudavadi lives in Western. I will not allow them to discredit what Musalia Mudavadi
Buluma, we are
who's
sorry.
an elder.
So what is the worst that can
But
happen?
anyway,
What is the worst that can
I don't
happen?
actually subscribe to politics of ethnic type of politics.
Yes.
But I want to be practical in terms of the reality, political reality in this country. Number one, there is no doubt that Raila commands a lot of influence. That one we must accept. He garnered close to over 6 million votes in the last election. Those are human beings who queued and voted for him. President Uhuru garnered 7 million plus. Those are human beings who voted for him. So it would be naive for us to just sitting here imagine that support has just faded away anyhowly. That's why I'm saying, if there is a genuine move towards uniting the country, then that must be towards, don't think of it from the individual's perspective, the guys who are playing up here. Think of it in terms of what would happen in a scenario where William Ruto has participated in an election, as unimaginable as it looks today, he loses that election. How do you reconcile that with the population in Rift Valley that believes in the ideals of William Ruto? If today an election happens and you have Raila Odinga, who has equally attracted his numbers in other parts of Kenya from, say, Western and Luo Nyanza, then he walks into a scenario where he has lost. The handshake was supposed to address that and give us a solution. And the solution is, these 6 million people will still feel part and parcel of the government of the day, not outside. And that is why
there is a problem
can I
here.
answer-
There is a problem here. You see, and this is what I was advising.
Let me cut you short. Let me cut you short because we have less than 5 minutes. Let us now put politics aside. Let us come back to the reality of the day. COVID-19 is here. 6 nations have refuted, they don't want to, they will not vaccinate with AstraZeneca because of serious blood clots. We are vaccinating with AstraZeneca. Now, the president is expected to address the nation tomorrow. What would you advise the president, especially in matters of curfew and the vaccines rollout? Karaoke.
Well, first of all, I would advise the president to also ask our scientists at the country to inquire some of these questions, because we are not sure. We are being told that this vaccine is not entirely preventive to COVID-19, that you can be injected and then the next minute you are getting COVID-19. So some of Kenyans are asking, so what's the need of this vaccine then, if it is not going to prevent us from this disease? So those are the questions that must be answered. I would also expect the president to launch an investment towards educating people and making them understand there is that gap, so that people don't end up being injected with the vaccine and then they will drop the guard and just not wear masks and whatever. So that's one. Two, I want the president to look at the most important thing in this context. At the moment, we are experiencing very hard financial constraints. You can see already, you see what the Cabinet Secretary of Finance is talking about. We have to borrow and borrow and borrow and borrow so that we can have liquidity and to run government programs. So what does this mean? This means that the president now must act as a person who cares about the economy of this country.
So he should open
that is from me.
He should open the economy.
I think he should open the economy
100%.
Because either way, if it is the issues of curfew, I think he must have been advised that these curfew things, even if science does not tell us that it is preventing COVID-19, perhaps insecurity has gone down.
Thank you, Karaoke.
Those are the kind of things that I think has happened.
The president is expected to address the nation tomorrow. What advice would you give the president?
Okay, now,
in a minute.
Though I'm not in a position to advise the president, but if it is me, now that we are in a political, on this constitutional politics, if it was me, the president could have put aside the political gimmicks of the political referendum, because we don't need now to channel all resources of this country towards fighting this pandemic. So now, so that our people could be saved. So, but the issue of telling us that we have the money for referendum, but we don't have the money of buying medicines to our people, it's just rhetoric.
You'd advise the president to
channel the resources.
Okay,
yeah.
Baluma.
COVID is a reality, Lincoln, yes, that we must learn to live with. We cannot continue running away and hiding in the comfort of one day it will end. Because from the look of things, it's a situation that we are going to be with for quite a while. So I would advise the president to immediately open the country so that we can begin to see the economy open up. And then in addition to the measures they are putting in place in terms of the vaccine, I think generally my observation is that most Africans have tended to be a bit more resilient in the fight against COVID. If you look at the numbers in Africa as compared to Europe and the other places, is quite on the lower. So I think what we just need in Africa is just to emphasize in terms of sensitization on best healthy ways of living, and just, you know, orient our people on how to live with this reality.
He should open
like right now as
yes.
we speak. When we started, we all started with masks.
Yes.
But where we are seated, we have maintained social distance. And after this interview, I have my mask. So by the time I'm walking to my class,
Yeah.
I know how to live with COVID.
Thank
I will
you.
make sure that
Thank
I have
you.
my mask on.
Thank you, Kariuki, thank you, Biluma, thank you, Kivai, and thank you for watching. Our fathers, this is our quote of the day. Our fathers fought bravely, but do you know the biggest weapon unleashed by the enemy against them? It was not the Maxim gun, it was division among them. Why? Because a people united in faith are stronger than the bomb. This is by Ngoge Wathiongo from A Grain of Wheat. Well, the views described in this show do not reflect the views of Switch TV, but those of individuals. This has been Tipping Point. I've been your host, Lincoln Ombogo, and our sign language interpreters, Michael, Matthew, and Teresia Washira. Many thanks for watching. The conversation continues next Thursday. Good evening.